to say the least.
Good morning, Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
I ain't one yet.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I left my email on. I don't see anything important in there but a bunch of spam. Sorry about that. A momentarily lapse in sanity. The title of this show, as you can see, is Why Are You Still Obsessed with Politics and Media When Both Are Irrelevant and Insignificant? Their era is over. And the subtitle is We Now Live in a Corporatocracy, Deal with It. And what I'm trying to get across to people is, wake up to reality, live in the real world. I can't tell you how many people, YouTubers, that I have watched, which, as you know, that's what I do. I'm a YouTuber. I broadcast, webcast, podcast, vlog, whatever you want to call it. Every day, mostly. I did every day last year, 365 consecutive shows. And this year, I guess I'm back in the saddle so far. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Dealing with some health issues. We'll see where they end up. That said, some of the major names, the people that I've always respected and follow, are still pounding out daily videos themselves, though they usually take time off and the weekends and things like that, vacations. I don't. And they're talking about politics and the media. Now, why is that? Why is that? Why are they so obsessed? I mean, don't they understand? If only they would have watched yesterday's show, okay? The true marionettes are the media and the politicians. You need to see that again in case you didn't watch yesterday's show. The true marionettes are the politicians, media and politicians. And you notice that marionette, which represents the media and politicians, she's holding those YouTubers and news junkies who have become marionettes of the media and politicians. I mean, this truly...
This is insane.
I mean, it's beyond insane. It's beyond that. I'm not going to name individual names of all these people, like I said. People who I've respected. I've watched their shows. I still do watch their shows, but I don't know for how much longer I'm going to do it. You see, let me explain something to you. People learn, it's part of human nature to learn from other humans. Okay? Somewhere around the line, somebody saw somebody create fire by either rubbing two sticks together, or, in ancient times, there could be some, like mythological idea of where lightning caused a fire, which it has done for so many years, and forest fires, which are the forest's natural way of clearing the underbrush and making way for new growth. But whatever the case may be, someone may have just grabbed a piece of fire and somehow captured it, put it around a bunch of stones and kept feeding it saw how it worked. And those were called the keepers of the fire. And they were considered, some sort of, very well respected and high order or something like that. Maybe they became ultimately chieftains and shamans. Or maybe it was the shaman was the guy who figured out accidentally somehow that friction caused a spark. Flint was trying to crack a stone, make an arrowhead, or do some kind of thing, and it sparked on some leaves or, bark of a tree, dried bark of a tree, and it caused fire. And he was able to duplicate that and showed it to the rest of his group. And then he became the shaman, right? But whatever the point is, people watched and they learned and they figured out how to do it. This is ancient things. This could be back to the point where someone found some sort of something round. They noticed that they were dragging things along a round log. And someone found a broken piece, like what today we would do with a chainsaw. If you had a tree, ring of a tree, so to speak, or just a tree trunk or something, and you sawed off an area, you would end up with a wheel. Maybe something like that naturally occurred. And someone saw or there was a small piece of a tree, very small, instead of it being a pole, like a telephone pole tree, there was some small broken up thing through, a lightning strike or some kind of thing. And some individual was using that to drag something along. And someone else looked at it and learned and said, hey, that round structure, the wheel, let's try to make that. We can get things from one place to another a lot faster. Right? It's human nature to learn from others. That's how we got where we are. And for generations, that's how advancement occurred. One generation kind of boosted, the other one. Each one learned from the previous and went further on. Technology is like that, right? As we flash forward to the near present. Someone did a thing and then somebody improved upon that thing, and it's like you give them a boost, put out your hand, pull them up, the cliff. The march of time, the advancement. And so then you look into the world of media and politics, all right? Understanding basic human nature. That's why I tell people, it's like human behavior, psychology, right? These are the most important things. These are the things that people need to learn in order to, if they really want to function in society. That's why the idea of education, apart from a specialized education, in other words, to become a surgeon or an engineer, or some specialized task that accumulated knowledge has, needs to be imparted in order for you to reach, reproduce the level of architecture or engineering, advanced design, or something along that line, or like I say, medicine, biology, whatever. In other words, you have to go to study school, to learn all of the vast amount of knowledge that has been passed on through time. But generally speaking, it's human. It's the understanding of human behavior that is really common sense, what some call, and even natural law, the idea of understanding just the way things work and how to live your life and just what makes sense, what's logical, that is the most important thing. And even the foundation for those who are seeking some sort of more, higher knowledge. You still have to have a foundation of understanding human behavior, common sense, and living by like what would be natural law. This idea of, you are free as long as you don't infringe upon other people's freedoms. It's a very broad, term, phrase, but it's all encompassing and it makes sense when you dig into it. But when you look at politics and the media, these are very petty things. They are very irrelevant and insignificant. And some may say, oh, no. They've got their finger on the button. Look. First of all, they've already done that. They've already pushed the button. All right. Figuratively. I mean, they dropped Big Boy. But, if that were to happen, that's it. End of story. Blammo. You don't worry about things that aren't going to affect you. Right? Or that if they do affect you, it's an end game. All right? Game over type of thing. Who cares? An asteroid hits, it's game over. Right? As I say, we get a solar nova, even a strong CME, Carrington type event that just happens to hit the wrong part of the world and takes down a vast majority of the grid. It's game over. Worrying about things like that, just raise your cortisol levels and, give you anxiety for no reason whatsoever. If it happens, it happens. What are you going to do? It's like somebody who has a phobia, right? All sorts of things can happen. That's why this thing today, this obsession with lockdowns and all this kind of stuff that they're doing, to me, is insanity, right? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Over 99% of the people haven't died from this thing. I'd say that's pretty good odds. But that's not it. Politics and the media are petty things. But what's happened is, just like the shaman or the person that watched and learned how to create fire or, make a wheel, improve upon a wheel, or through the march of time, watch somebody eat certain healthy foods, saw somebody eat some kind of berry and die, and then knew that was poison. All sorts of things. People who learn to hunt, fish, by watching others. You understand what I'm saying? Human behavior, the understanding, humans learning from other humans, humans doing what they have the natural ability to do, things that humans can do because they have opposing thumbs, for example. They walk upright, they can run, they can walk, they can reach, they can climb. All right? These basic ideas. And then you suddenly create these civilizations and societies like we have today, where many of those things that were once considered, greatly admired by the rest of the tribe or the group, and the people who knew, had those abilities, were elevated within those, you can call them societies. Well, now those things are commonplace. If you want to create a fire, you just go buy a 99-cent, lighter, right? I don't know if they still give out free packs of matches at places, but, you know, if you want a wheel, well, you could just go buy one, or you have a car or whatever. We, for the most part, you know, we get our food. We know what to eat and what not to eat. Only a fool would go forage and eat something strange off the ground without knowing what they're eating. Or watch some YouTube video and listen to someone telling you to take some kind of weird concoction for some kind of ailment instead of seeking out a medicine man or a woman. But you know, way back, for most people, the people looked at the Reagan Revolution, and we're flash forwarding into, you know, the current, you know, modern times. And they saw how the conservatives kind of blindsided, you know, the liberals. And what they did was they used things like direct mail, mailing lists, you know, events, things of that nature. And they found a way to reach a broader audience. They utilized the media in a specific way, even though the media was mostly leaned to the left even back then, right? As did entertainment. This is no new development. I mean, it's gone completely out of control, and it's gone so far left that it's, you know, at some points it's almost laughable to somebody with common sense who understands human behavior. But nonetheless, and so what happened was, so you had this sweeping thing, and you had the Reagan Revolution. And conservatives seized power of, you know, basically the greatest nation on earth at the time, right? The most powerful and wealthiest nation. And that power lasted for quite a long time. And then what the left did was just like the person that watched the guy use flint, stone, or rub sticks together or whatever to make fire, or that this shortened round log, you know, could be a wheel or could be, you know, used to drag something along and improve upon it. They looked at the tools that the so-called Reagan Revolution used, and they adopted them to their own party's campaign methodologies. And then they won. And then Clinton came in. Right? I mean, how often have you heard the thing, people use the other's own tactics against them? Right? And since then, it's been a mishmash and a back and forth. And in many ways, Trump was kind of like a Reagan Revolution. It was a similar thing. It blindsided the left. Because the individuals involved in that, you know, basically they stepped back, they saw what was occurring, and they said things. And whereas the left were looking and thinking, this guy's a lunatic, this guy No one's going to vote for him. And this stuff he's saying is just ridiculous. People don't care about that. They only care about what we care about. And so they were blindsided, and Trump ended up winning, right, a landslide. Now, since then, the last election, things are just, we've spiraled out of control now. We are no longer living in a system of government that has anything to do with elections or politics or the media. The media's ratings have dropped down to nothing. Like I said yesterday, a guy, a stoner who runs a podcast, has more combined ratings than has more ratings than the most of the household name cable TV shows combined. And the guy sits there and smokes pot and passes gummies and experiments with hallucinogenic drugs on the air, and has guests on there that talk about things like DMT and ayahuasca and things like that. This guy's got more ratings than Fox and MSNBC and all these people, guys, talking heads on TV networks, cable networks, who sit there with sport coats and ties on and haircuts, right? The age of the media is over as far as any kind of, that's concerned. And likewise, politics. What do we have in politics now? It's absurd. The country's run by a corporatocracy. Currently, right now, Big Pharma is the primary force in controlling this country. All right? They have come to the fore out of the corporatocracy. They are raking in hundreds of billions of dollars and forcing all sorts of every mandate, everything to do with this thing is basically coming out of a corporate structure. And people say, well, no, Biden's administration is doing this, and the media, they're pushing this thing. Well, where are they getting their funding? There is no media without advertisers. Remember, I spent a lifetime in that, dealing in media, entertainment, advertising, and publishing. I mean, I know that inside and out, and the internet, of course. It's my world. That's my wheelhouse. I'm not pulling this stuff out of thin air. This isn't some theory, right? It's not a hypothesis. This is fact. This is documented fact. Okay? A politician does not get elected without campaign donors. Who's donating to the campaigns? Right? Big pharma, big tech, military contractors, Wall Streeters. You understand? Who's supporting the media? What commercials are you seeing on TV? The big ones. Right? Big pharma, big tech, big ag. Right? You're seeing ads for like military jets sometimes on these on network TV. Think about that. Can you afford $1 billion jet? No. That's just their way of saying we own you. We own you. And you say anything against us, and we pull these $1 million worth the ads from your TV stations. Okay? It's plain for anyone to see who has common sense. Like I say, it's human behavior. That's why so many people don't understand the criminal mind when they see these criminals do these things. And they go, the guy has a 6th grade education, And the guy's outsmarting the FBI. He's on America's Most Wanted list, and the guy's a 6th grade education. Because the guy has common sense. He understands human behavior. Right? You don't need a degree to open your eyes and see things the way they are. But most people's eyes are wide shut right now. Coffee's not exactly as good as yesterday, but I mean, it's basically the same coffee. I don't know. It's different. I kind of slept well last night, but I don't know. Didn't feel all that well this morning when I got up. But anyway, so why are you still obsessed with politics and the media? When they're irrelevant and insignificant. Their era is over. And the only thing keeping them alive are the vloggers and and the social media posters and tweeters and meme designers and people that keep reposting, retweeting, and making things go viral about politicians and the media. It's so self-centered, so narcissistic if you really think about it, right? All of the top shows, that's what they're about. I mean, except if you get into the gaming world or certain other worlds. Those who still are able to deal with sports, they don't really care about that kind of thing. They're more worried about their sports teams. They're focusing on the stats of their sports players. Gamers know things about games and names of games and characters within games that, just the same way as some political podcaster can spout off, all these various congressmen and senators and whatever. Or some other political, vlogger on YouTube can talk about all these other, newspapers or online, rags or cable networks or network anchors. And then there's people in all kinds of other things. People into crafts, into arts, music, musicians. So it's always disheartening to see some musician say some kind of political thing. Because, they're so involved in music that they're just hearing a little bit of a thing and then they make a statement and they think they're being cool or they think they're doing the right thing because they heard this person was bad and this person was this or this was that. But they don't know the story. But I'll tell you what, even the people who think they're informed don't know what's going on. They have no idea because they don't understand this. And that's why I kept this slide from yesterday here. And I'll keep this slide here probably till the last show I do. Because it's one of the best slides I've ever made, I think. If you don't understand this, you do not understand what's going on in the world today, and certainly not what's going on in the United States of America. If you do not understand that this is a corporatocracy, all right? If you don't understand that there's a bureaucracy that runs in tandem with the corporatocracy, then you don't see the real world. You don't see things the way they really are. And if you spend your day criticizing, arguing, getting anxious and frustrated about things that deal with politics and the media, it's such a sad state to be in. All people have to do to end this era, this nightmare era, this.
This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare.
If you want to end that, all you have to do, it's as simple as not watching. That's all you have to do. Not watch them. Ignore them. And they'll go away. They'll disappear. They'll just vanish. It's like somebody who opens a store in the old days. Today, the idea of opening a new store is probably not even possible. It's bad enough stores trying to stay opened. But let's take it to a point where, in the days where where the malls were popular, or even strip malls were somewhat popular. And there's this open place, open space, and the rent was such and such. And someone says, hey, I'm going to open up. In fact, I have firsthand experience with this, and I know these people aren't watching this, but I had a building and I had space, and I had some people, and they opened up a shop that they sold, little like porcelain things and expensive candles and different things like that. All right? Because they got it in their mind. But the problem was the location that they put it in wasn't in, excuse me. Apologize for that. I just felt like a sneeze was coming on, and if I wouldn't have done that, I would have ended up sneezing. So, which is worse? Pouring some more coffee into my coffee. Oh, my coffee thing just is leaked onto my some gift cards and some other goofy things I had here, and I'm suddenly realizing I don't have any thing to wipe it up with. Kill disaster. Kill disaster. We just ruined a bunch of paper, stack of papers and some things I had here. All right. Well, anyway, so these two, in that case, it was two individuals. I don't want to name names or even get into their genders because, like I say, I respect people's privacy. So they opened up this store. So number one, it was a bad location. All right. And they had never opened a store before, so they didn't even have a good idea on how, the layout, the understand of, positioning of things on shelves and stuff like that. My early days, I had experience with some of that. But they just rented the space. I had nothing to do with it. They didn't want me to be a consultant. I tried a couple times to give them some advice, but they just didn't seem interested. Right? And inevitably, they went out of business. Because they didn't get enough, didn't have enough sales, didn't get enough people to buy their products. It's the same with the media. The media lives on ratings, all right? Politicians, they exist because of donors and popularity among the constituents, the people that put them in office. If you ignore a politician and you don't donate to their campaigns, politicians go away. If you do that en masse to all of them, all parties, forget about red wave, all these people, oh my God, save America. You can't change a thing that no longer exists. See, Rome, Italy still exists. There's still a city called Rome, right? But the Roman Empire's long gone. America's here, and America will stay until the sun has an outburst, an asteroid hits, or some other natural disaster destroys the continent until it gets covered with ice again, like it was some 10, 12,000 years ago, where you had mass extinction of humans and animals right here on this continent of America, North America. People don't even understand that. They don't even teach that in school. I was never taught that in school. You know, in fact, I had somewhat liberal education, so it was the idea, oh, well, so the idea wasn't so much was like, okay, yeah, the British came over here and basically killed all the Indians, took the land or something. Well, it's like the Indians weren't even the indigenous people, because 12,000 years ago, there was nobody here. There was like a mile of ice. A frozen wasteland. Those that did live here at the time basically froze to death. They died. They became extinct. Woolly mammoth, saber-toothed tiger, these giant bears, these other things died. Any humans that were here, I guess, there was flash freezes. They would have died instantly. They didn't even have time. They found the woolly mammoths with undigested plants in their stomachs. So any humans that would have been here, there may well have been, they say there have been. They don't really talk too much about that, digging up that. They would have died instantly, the same as the woolly mammoth. Or if or whatever. I mean, the big civilizations were down south. Mexico, Central America, South America. There were indigenous people there. But then again, some of those cultures we only know, we can date them back to thousands of years. But that's not what this is about. The idea is, what I'm trying to say is, and you only know what you know. You can't even go what you learned in a book. Don't even listen to me. It's like I say, the Younger Dryas period. There's still argument on that. Some people believe it was like an asteroid, a comet that broke up and, so split, and these two asteroids hit. One hit the western part of the U.S., and another one hit Greenland and maybe some other parts around the world, and caused this, cataclysm. Others believe it's a 12,000-year cycle that we're in right now, and it happens approximately every 12,000 years, and we're overdue. Who knows? You can examine the evidence, and you can have things. Those are the things. Those are the thought experiments. Those are the things that people use their minds. That's the stuff of scientists, of astrophysicists, of archaeologists, anthropologists. People that study these sorts of things for a living. It's what they do. It's what they went to school for, or it's what they researched or studied. None of that stuff has anything to do with the media and politics. Maybe if the media paid a little more attention to it, they would find people interested in it. But that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm trying to say is that this obsession with media and politics is keeping things that are far outdated in the foreground and are keeping them alive when they are the two most dangerous aspects to this society. See, rather than you trying to vote someone out of office or vote someone into office, what you should be doing is trying to work for the corporatocracy in some manner. And the reason I brought this up is where people learned how to make fire, and even how in politics themselves, they learned to do what the other side did in order to get into office. Okay, well, you have to apply those same techniques now to the corporatocracy. So if you don't like what the corporatocracy is doing, the direction, because that is what is running the world right now, then you do like what the CIA did with the media. You infiltrate, like what was it, Project Mockingbird or something ridiculous like that. I mean, these things have all been uncovered. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. basically came out the other day on Mike Tyson's podcast and gave the name of the person that assassinated, was involved in the Kennedy assassination, and they all were CIA operatives and involvement with the CIA. I mean, that should have been like front page headline news everywhere. I don't hear anybody covering it. I don't even know if anybody saw that. I happened to see it randomly. I don't even know why it came into my recommended list. I didn't even know Mike Tyson had a podcast. It's some kind of thing about, it's not really boxing, but it's something to do like with boxing terminology or something. Check out Mike Tyson's podcast with Robert Kennedy Jr. And it's like towards the very end. It's a mind blower. It's a mind blower. I haven't heard anyone cover that. And he would know, Okay? He knows. Think about that. I'm like the only guy covering that. There's 0 people watching this show, as far as I know. Sometimes something shows up in my chat. Oh, some goofy fake. Somehow some fake thing comes into my chat, though my chat remains, my stream settings analytics show that I have no viewers or no playbacks. Figure that out. So, straight from the Kennedys, we now know the truth about that has come out, and it's not even news, right? So you're talking about a media, significance of a media. They're irrelevant and insignificant. They don't even cover the real news. Would they think that would be a conspiracy theory or something? So funny. I mean, pathetic. Funny in a pathetic way. But politicians, no. You have to do what the CIA did. They wanted control of the media, so they infiltrated it. They wanted to take over governments, so they infiltrated it. They basically got involved. They went down. All the damage they did in like Central America, right? And all these places where they, took over countries and stuff. Having coups, installed the Shah of Iran, which ultimately was the beginning of the disruption, that lasted for 60, almost, geez, if you think about it, almost 70 years of insanity over in the Middle East that's still not over. It was the CIA that started that whole thing. So the point of the matter is, what I'm trying to get at is that if you take away politicians, if you take away the media, and you accept the fact that it's the corporatocracies in control, and then you work for a company, all right, then people in that company will chart the course of that company. See, in other words, you have to use the same idea of politics in the corporate world. So someone's thinking, oh, I want to get involved in politics because I want to change this country. I want to make America great again, or build back better, or something like that, or have a great reset. But what you're using is a broken system, a system that's not even truly in power. because it's a corporatocracy. You can't argue with that point. It's not up for argument. It's not up for debate. You do understand what big tech is, right? You do understand big media, like 5 media companies own the lion's share of all the media. You do understand big pharma and how corrupt and how guilty they are of high crimes and misdemeanors, like beyond belief. You've watched the TV commercials and seen, the lawsuits and the deaths that they've caused. Okay? These are criminal organizations, right? You've seen the endless wars that were brought on by the military contractors just so they could sell weaponry to the U.S. government. You saw all the soldiers come home, commit suicide, come back broken, and come back in caskets. And then you also learned that the reasons why we went into some of these wars were falsified documents, fake news reports, fake press release by politicians that the media gave lip service to. You watch the age of people, mortality rate in America dropping by almost 2 years, people dying, okay, because of big ag, all right, and what they're doing with the food and getting away with it. You see how Wall Street has destroyed people every couple decades or so, sometimes less, destroyed people's livelihoods, taking everything away from them. Right? We see these, the rise and falls, the collapses, and people's entire life's earnings they lose everything. You watch this, you know about this, you may have experienced it firsthand, or have you experienced it within your family or friends, people you know, worked with. But still you're saying, oh, we have to vote such and such way, we have to do this. And you sit there and you sit there with your processed food that's only going to kill you early. And you watch the nightly news. Or you sit there all day just eating junk food or doing ridiculous things, binge watching cable news, as if it matters. And you're stressed out and you're tweeting and you're posting things and you're all crazed over this, that, the other. But it's the same story every day, every month, every year. Just the names change, the locations change. The story, it's the same story. It's like some traveling troubadour, in medieval times, going through villages with, an instrument like the hurdy-gurdy. Look up that instrument. There's a good documentary on that. And singing these songs, but like customizing them for whatever area, that the person's into or in that time. Don't you see? Don't you see? The politicians and the media are marionettes. And the people that are obsessed with the media and politicians are marionettes of the media and politicians. Do you really understand that? Do you see this? Do you get it? Do you see this? And you say, well, what can I do about it? So what? Well, yeah, I knew that. You didn't know that. Because if you knew it, you would do the simple thing that I told you to do. Just turn them off. No one votes for a politician. No one votes for any politician. The system collapses. No one watches media. They go out of business. Oh, yeah, there'll be some people that like put their money in because they think they're getting to try to get their message out. See, when you give a political contribution, right, it just goes to, keeping the media alive. But the point of the matter is that people will stop giving money to the media if they know their message is not going out. In other words, no one's going to prop up CNN or Fox if nobody's watching. Well, why would you? You're not going to go out into the middle of a forest, all right, where you literally need like a machete or something to chop through some thicket to get to a certain point that's in the middle, literally in the middle of nowhere. No one could get there. You couldn't even get there. You had to chop yourself in with a machete. And you're going to put up a billboard there. And then you're going to leave on the path you came. Well, why would you do that? It's an art piece? I could dig that. But no one's going to see the billboard because no one's watching. No one can get to there. No one's going down that path. That path is going to be overgrown actually the next time it rains, really. The way weeds and vines and things grow. I know, I see it in my backyard trying to keep that stuff down. If I take like a week or two off and it happens to be a rainy week or something, things grow out of control. Well, it's the same with the media. If you stop watching the media, well, no one's going to advertise on them. I mean, a fool might, but who even cares? No one's going to see the ad, right? I have no idea why my coffee cup was leaking like that. It wasn't really leaking. It just like poured off the side and probably destroyed some stuff. Really weird. So yeah, I hope I'm getting through to people, even though there's nobody watching now. But I mean, this is live, being to be broadcast later. Unedited, just flow of consciousness. I wanted to get this point across, get this out to you. But politics is the same way. Politicians are powerless people. And I could hear, I could hear like dozens of people arguing. Well, you don't understand. They're the ones that they make these rules. They make these mandates. Ignore them. You don't vote them out of office, and you don't vote somebody in to take their place. You don't try to impeach them. You don't try to do anything. You just ignore them. You see? They're not in charge anyway. The corporatocracy's in charge. They work for the corporatocracy. Don't you get it? A marionette is a puppet for someone who doesn't understand that. They're puppets of big tech, big pharma, military contractors, Wall Street / the Fed, World Economic Forum, Big Ag. Right? Don't you see? The media are just commercial ventures that sell commercials. All right? They're controlled by the corporatocracy. Who cares about, in other words, they're powerless, they're meaningless. And if that's how you clean up the corporatocracy, because you take away their instruments of control. And then they just become what we would hope they would be. In other words, big tech goes back to being a technology company. Remember when Steve Jobs was at Apple Computers? All the advancements, and he would say, oh, and there's one more thing. And then he'd bring out the iPhone or the iPod or some new breakthrough in a different kind of computer, different kind of desktop computer, or some crazy apps that they developed on their own. You remember that? Do you remember when the internet, came along? Do you remember when, like, YouTube first came out? Before it was, co-opted, bought out and turned it. Like before politics, before they had the politicians and the media, all right? Technology was for technology. It was advancement. It was for the advancement, quality of life for the human beings. It improved the human condition. There wasn't this thing that came along with it. Well, yeah, you could have this technology, but along with it, you have to have, adhere to our ideologies, and you have to do this, and you've got to walk these eggshells or walk this tightrope. Okay, do you remember that? You remember when someone when things were created by science and technology, and then there was no politics involved? Remember when you used to turn on the news and it actually would be real news about something, and you go, "Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that." Right? Instead of it being the same old thing. Oh, for five years, you couldn't turn on a newscast without there being, well, Trump, right? And now it's Biden, and now it's, virus. It's like, well, what's, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the world. There's some guys writing scientific papers that, right now, there's one due out on February 22nd that could literally change our understanding of physics altogether. I bet you didn't know about that. Revolutionary papers about to be published. We've launched these telescopes up there in space, and the people are aware of them, and they've gotten some coverage. But, it's in one ear, out the other, out of sight, out of mind. There's all kinds of technologies out there. And there's all kinds of things that can make your life better and make you healthy. But like I said, the internet is broken. Not only are they ideologically bent, all right? But when you look something up, you get two contradictory answers. So in effect, the internet is broken. Google search is broken, right? You can't trust it. Wikipedia is like, that people just keep editing it and putting in things that are untrue, or changing things because it doesn't fit the narrative or their particular ideological belief. Philosophy, ideology, those are personal things, just like religion. Those are things you deal with in churches, synagogues, mosques, wherever. Tents, big tents. They have these big tent things. That's where you deal with religion and your personal ideologies and philosophies, or unless you want to study philosophy. People just don't get it. I was thinking about this before I came downstairs today to do this show, because there's really no prep. I have no reason. There's no prep necessary. I'm just talking. I was just thinking. I go, that's what I'm going to talk about today, and I can't believe it. I just can't believe how am I the only one that sees it this way? I mean, what is it? I mean, I watched something, like I said, I don't like to name names too often, unless it's really some super public name and, it really is important that the name is associated with it. But, there were a number of, like I say, vloggers, podcasters, whatever you want to call them, that I happened to watch a little bit of, yesterday afternoon, because I got up so early yesterday. I had 2 days in one yesterday. Because I woke up at 1:30 in the morning, but I went to bed at 5:30 the night before. So I slept 8 hours, but I woke up. I was downstairs at like 2. So, from 2 a.m. I was doing a show, watched a show, whatever. By the time it hit like 9 or 10 o'clock, that day was done, right? So now it's morning, and I'm talking to people, and I talked to one particular person. And I was saying, I realize your day is just beginning. I said, my day's over, but I still have a whole nother day ahead of me. And I did. And so I had to spend that whole second day. I had 2 days in one, but I still slept 8 hours. And last night I went to bed fairly early, so I basically slept 8 hours. And here I am. It's 5:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Oh, by the way, I think I might have temporarily fixed this chair from sliding down. I don't know. We'll see. I put some screws in it, but it's not like they were like titanium or anything. They're just some small screws. And then I surrounded the screws with some electrical tape and stuff and kind of forced. And we'll have to see if the thing slips down. I think that my next stage is to get some kind of like Gorilla Tape and put some kind of like pieces of metal, little wire type metal up, and then surround that with like Gorilla Tape and kind of reinforce. It's the best thing I could do than to weld it into place, because it really can't be welded, because it's half plastic with there's a metal shaft in there. But I mean, there's no, it's not metal against metal, put it that way. Besides, I don't have a welder. I'm not going to buy one just for this. And I wouldn't know what to do. So, yeah, don't you see it? Don't you see it? And why are you still obsessed with politics and media? I mean, do you say, well, it's just for fun. It's my hobby. There's other things you can do. There's so many things to do. Lots of people are doing lots of different things. I mean, media ratings are so low. What do you think those other 99+% people are doing? What about the 99% plus people who didn't die from this thing that they're making a big hullabaloo about? See, it's a big hullabaloo on the media. I guess that's why, I don't get big high ratings on this thing, because people aren't just paying attention to any of this stuff. They're doing stuff. I do it as a thing to do. This is kind of more of a hobby, and I'm a social critic, and I wrote 10 books, and I write songs and stuff. And I told you before, I use these to kind of work out ideas in my head, and then I watch them back. And it helps me formulate ideas and see, like, maybe where, I went in this direction, and I try to perfect. It's a constant examination of thought, the thought process I have. And then ultimately, if I continue to write books, it's these discussions I have that are the foundation of what those books are. That's my purpose. It's a thing I do. But like I say, there's things other people do. There's sports, there's gaming. Like I say, there's still a lot of people that just read books. A lot of people read. I know people who still go to the library and take out books on a fairly regular basis. Right? There are people working in labs and stuff that are, trying to find cures for things. People are doing all sorts of things. People still work on their cars, right? Even though they're hard to work on because they're half chips. And the reason there's been such a, shortage of vehicles has been because of the chip shortage. People still do that. They spend time with their car. It's part of their life. I do the, I still spend time gardening, growing things. I can't wait for the nicer weather so I could sit out there and enjoy the sun and stuff. A lot of people do that. There's a lot of gardeners out there. And then there's real downright farmers. There's people that fix things. There's people that mess with gadgets. There's people who have telescopes whose hobby it is to look up at the stars at night. I have a friend, a regular, somewhat regular on the show who takes pictures of sunrises on a daily basis, compiles those. People do things. Right? People listen to music. Music is their life. Right? People collect vinyl records. Stuff like that. People are into that kind of thing. Antiquing. Every chance they get. Going to thrift stores and yard sales, garage sales, and those big sales in the summertime they have in certain parts of the country where there's like miles of stuff available. People like to cook. There's the home gourmet and then there's the chef. Then there are people who like to go out to eat or like to experience fine food. People that are into wine tasting. People who are brewers, home brewers, or go to, these various brew pubs that make their own, various beers and liquors. There's so many things. Some people like to travel, visit places. There's a lot of people just like to play. Ride roller coasters. I used to know somebody used to travel around to just find these different roller coasters. It was like a thing. Ride all the roller coasters in the USA. All the crazy ones. People put puzzles together. When I'm really bored, I found on Fire TV on my TV, and it's pretty easy to do. You could play solitaire cards on your TV, and it's just a matter of like using this. Well, like I say, this is the Apple thing. Okay, but using this circular thing to basically, move the card to the left, to the right, to the top, to the bottom, and then press the center to have it stay there. Some genius figured that out and created solitaire that you could play on a TV app and sit in your chair and play solitaire. I was listening to, of all things, Black Sabbath Paranoid album a couple of days ago, playing solitaire. And it was a pretty enjoyable, weird experience, because it was like I was listening. I hadn't listened to that album in years. I mean, decades. Just the entire album from beginning to end. But it wasn't like I was just sitting there listening to it, staring at the four walls. I was like playing this solitaire game. So it was like I was doing something, but I'm listening to this thing. It was entertaining. It was a great way to pass. I don't know how long the album is. 2.5 hour, 45 minutes. Those older albums were. Good old Ozzy. Right. Speaking of politics, though, I mean, boy, did he really lay into, the politics of the era in that. But listening to that music at the time, it's like there was something about it, It's like even listening to it today, I read more into it than I at the time when I first heard that stuff. I was just hearing it as music and like little sentences here and there. I wasn't really hearing it in its totality of what was really being expressed. But, just an example, people like to go hiking. I used to work with explorers who would go to Antarctica, the North Pole, climb the Himalayas, the 7 peaks, things like that. Go to the Amazon rainforest. You see what I mean? There's a litany of things, and I'm sure you could think of dozens and dozens and dozens of things I'm not even mentioning. People go on expeditions and check out, go to see the pyramids and all these ancient structures and stuff. And then there's people that are like professional students almost. They just keep learning throughout their whole life. They just keep taking. Some people have multiple degrees in things just because of their thirst for knowledge, not so much to apply them to anything, right? They just want to know. And you're still obsessed with politics and the media. And, a a sideline of looking at what I just said is that there are all of these things, this list of things that I've said and the things that you could think of that I've missed. And yet, none of those, how many of those issues come up on the media, right? They don't. And so we let a handful of companies who own most of the media basically dictate politics, and do the bidding of this corporatocracy. And like I say, if you want to topple this thing, if you want to change things, if you want to improve the quality of life, just ignore them. And you say, well, I can't ignore them. Yeah, you can. I'm not dealing with them. I don't deal with them. I mean, really. When you reach a certain age, it's like, if you play your cards right, retire early. Just live your life, man. Get out of the rat race. And if you're caught in the rat race, don't make it be a rat race. There are so many jobs available now. Find something that you actually like to do. I worked my whole life, and every job I had was in a field, and it was something that I enjoyed doing. Never felt like work. Like, oh, no, I got to go to work. Right? I mean, there was few times when I was a kid, when I had some job in high school or in between something because I decided I wanted to travel somewhere and I might have to pick up a job so I could get money to get, pay my rent till I could get the job I wanted or something like that. Yeah, I had a couple of those type of things. But generally speaking, all my jobs were fun. And there's so many job openings now, 10 million, 20 million, who knows, right? It's over 10 million for sure, but it's probably as high as 20 million jobs available. Think about that, 20 million. So you could probably do anything you wanted to do right now. And I don't think they're going to be too picky. So I try to tell people, when you have that kind of openings and companies that just can't do business if they don't have employees, I don't think they're going to be really sticklers on saying, let me see your resume. Oh, it looks like, how come you were fired from that job or something. I think they're going to take you because they just need to open. If they don't have enough people to open their business, they're going to go out of business. So better to hire a guy who got fired, at least they'll open their doors. And then they could be, once they're back open, then they could have their, pick of the available people out there. Or if somebody screws up, at least they've got cash flow so they could find somebody else. Yeah, it's nuts. It's really nuts. I guess it's a frustration of mine. I don't know why it is, though. I shouldn't be frustrated. I'm trying, it sounds kind of corny, but, I kind of have a mission with these things. There's a reason behind this. The method behind my madness is, like I say, it's like service to others. And if that sounds like something you think, oh, that's ridiculous. But no, that's what I'm really trying to do. I am trying to share my insights and hoping that I can maybe open the eyes of at least one person. And if more people did that, it would be a better world. Is like I say. And you could call it cheesy, corny, hokey, whatever kind of weird word you want to add. But, there's some of us out there that are like that. That believe that, we could make a difference and we should do something to make a difference while we're on this planet. Because despite all this craziness, it's still a beautiful planet, a beautiful world. And even a person like me who's like suffered all these illnesses and stuff, sporadically, it's still a nice life, and I've still had some beautiful experiences in my life, And so, why not try to share and, just let other people know that it is a beautiful world and that you can have a good life, at least moments. Moments of happiness. It's like that line, it's like life's not going to be a bowl of cherries or whatever. But you're going to have days. I've had days where I sat at my bar and I had a bowl of cherries in front of me. Right? I can't really eat ice cream anymore, because I've had this, I'm going through this like gallbladder thing or whatever, so I'm like, so I'm really trying to lay off the fats and sugars and processed foods because I don't want to have an operation. This is just my personal story. I'm not looking for sympathy or anything. But, I've had some fun eating. I've had some enjoyable experiences eating ice cream. I've had some enjoyable experiences just gardening and just hanging out and just laying in the sun, getting a suntan, and soaking up vitamin D. I've had extremely enjoyable experiences, with women in my life over the years. I've lived and traveled in many, many, many places and all of that. And so I'm just trying to say, to be so obsessed with politics and media that have played such a small role, really, even decades and decades ago. There are always these, bad actors, as they call them, these players that, want to control, the idea, the people that are sick on, obsessed with greed and power, right? Sick people, narcissistic sociopaths, psychopaths, right? They've always been around since the dawn of civilization, and they'll be around until the end. You can't change that. Right now there are certain people that think they had some great victory in 2020, but in cities all over this country, people are being killed every weekend. Well, every day, really. Murders, gangs are running rampant. People are living lives of quiet desperation. People are poor, suffering. People are crying. Some people are rolled up in a ball, right? Mental illness, suicide rate is high. People are sick, and the sicknesses are coming from foods that are advertised on the media that the politicians and people at the FDA and places like that approved, right? And people are having operations. Heart disease is the number one killer. Cancer is on the rise. It's the number 2 killer. People have diabetes, type 2 diabetes. All sorts of diseases besides this thing that Big Pharma is making hundreds of billions of dollars trying to put a thing in your arm. Besides all of that, and it's like, do you understand? The system of politics and media didn't work and isn't working, and it just needs to go away. We're entering the age of the corporatocracy. And the only way you're going to rein in the corporatocracy is that if you work with the corporatocracy and work for the corporatocracy and basically infiltrate the corporatocracy. If enough people at a job would say no, there's things called principles. People aren't principled. Ethics, morals. In other words, you could push me so far, but you can't. I'm not going to cross that line. All right. And you say, no, this particular thing is not realistic. In an era when unemployment is on the rise, forget about the government figures, 3.9% unemployment. Who are they trying to kid? The unemployment rate in the country is way higher than that. First of all, 50% of the people in the country don't work. Now that includes kids and people who are, retired. But so number one, unemployment's at best is close to 150 million people, and there's 330 million people in the country. 3.9% unemployment rate. It cracks me up. The unemployment rate's like over 20-some% in the United States, maybe higher. Companies are desperate for employees, It's time you stand up to the HR department and say, screw you. Well, you have to do this and you have to watch this. I'm not going to watch some stupid movie on how I should talk or how I should sit or what. I'm not allowed to talk to a girl in the office. Do you know that the vast majority, for pretty much most of the 20th century, the majority of people met their spouse, like your parents, met their spouse at work or through work, right? or maybe in a bar or a club or something, a dance, something like that. Stuff they don't, they've outlawed. And they've got these things now that, like, if you so think about it. It's they've got rules now. Like, if you would go to a girl in a bar and just approach her, and that's like some kind of, oh, hey, he's assaulting me, he's asking me out, or he asked if he could buy me a drink. Right? Or at work, if you like say hi to some woman, or go over to her work carol and say, hey, how you doing? Introduce yourself. That's like against some HR rule. No wonder nobody's getting married and having kids. The thing about it is, this generation, this society, is basically imploding because it's eliminating itself. Right? If you don't get married and have kids, then there is no next generation. Right? And all the stringent rules that you're putting out because you think you're going after a particular element of society or something, well, those rules will apply to you. And so that you're going to be stuck with the same rules. And basically, nobody's going to want to be with you. Right? The things you see in TV series, TV shows, movies, and the stories, the so-called human interest stories on the media, those are like, this is all like a small percentage of the population. That's what I'm saying. Just turn it off and live your life. Let those people, make it clear to them that that they're irrelevant and insignificant. Their era is over. Their era is over. We no longer need this. And I'm sorry for you people saying, but the founding fathers and the Constitution. Look, they already broke the Constitution. Do you see the Constitution being abided by? The First Amendment. Do you see anybody paying attention to the First Amendment? How many times do I have to say this? Right? It says Congress shall make no law, and included in the First Amendment is abridging free speech. Terms of service have basically thumbed their nose, given the finger to that. It goes on to say Congress shall make no law, and you should have the freedom to bring grievances, to your government, express grievances with your government. Can't do it, right? Like I said, the Constitution giveth, and the terms of service taketh away. Well, what do you think? You're going to vote somebody in office? Do you understand? You already did that once. Trump was in office for 4 years, and it didn't work. And if you put in somebody else in there, not even him, but somebody else who's going to save America in quotation marks, even if they made changes, the next one that would come in would be the same as that picture you saw of Biden when he got in office, a big stack of executive orders, and sign them all, sign everything that the last guy did. Do you ever look back at like Congresses and presidents and notice how it goes from Republican to Democrat, Republican to Democrat, Republican to Democrat? The era is over for politics, and media is just, that's how they make their money. See, because it's, in other words, if you ignore media and politicians, you basically take the ideology out of the corporatocracy. And so, in effect, the corporatocracy gets back to being what it was. In other words, big tech functions once again as a technology company. Big ag gets back to farming, all right? Okay? Big pharma gets back to doing medicine, all right? Because they're no longer involved in that, unholy alliance, the trinity, the unholy trinity, the corporatocracy, politicians, and the media. And then these side groups like the CIA and the FBI, these criminal organizations is what they are, basically, right? they fall apart. See, people have to let the government just, be dismantled. And how do you dismantle it? You dismantle it by taking away its power. That's how you dismantle it. I know people aren't going to do this. If I had Joe Rogan's viewership, maybe. But the problem is he won't ever say anything like this. He wouldn't dare. And so those with the voices, aren't using them for anything positive, for positive change. And so you get people like me who do these things to a small audience. And the whole reason, the idea of this being a small audience is this is big tech basically shadow banning me. And I'm not going to get into it any more detail than saying, look, with 2 billion active users on YouTube, there's no reason that over the course of the week, say, by the law of probability and statistics, basic science and mathematics, physics, I don't know. There should at least, be thousands of people that would hear this. And then you would hope those thousands would share that and, whatever. And so that's why they shadow ban me and I get no views at all. I really get zero. They really have me totally pigeonholed. It's sad. It's sad. And I know all this stuff, and I've imparted so much knowledge over the past, 500, 600 videos, that, like I've said before, it takes the wind out of your sails, and you just say, I don't know, why do you do it? And it's like, well, it's wintertime. I got up early. What am I going to do? Lay in bed? I don't feel like doing that. Watch TV? There's nothing on TV. I don't have cable TV, but there's nothing on the pay. There's nothing on Netflix. There's nothing on Amazon Prime. There's nothing on HBO Max right now that I haven't seen. They only really have one series or one or two good movies a month. It's pathetic. I don't know. So I guess that's that. I'll give you one last look at this thing. Let's sink into your head for a second that the true marionettes are the media and politicians. And that you're a puppet of puppets. You're a puppet of puppets. If only you could really see that. I don't know.
Good morning.
Wow. That's an earful. Thanks for watching. Those who will have watched this in the future. You can visit my site to get any of this stuff that I put out there, which nobody seems to want either. And it's all stuff to help you, really. Anyway, until next time, cheers.